Welcome back to another tier list. This tier list will probably be the most important tier list I will ever make, for me personally. In this tier list, if you can't see by the background for you nerds, this is going to be the tier list going over the Lord of the Rings and yes, the Hobbit movies, but most importantly, the Lord of the Rings movies. We'll start off with the Hobbit movies and end on the Lord of the Rings movies, and we'll go from there. So let's get freaking started. So as you can see, I have S, A, B, C, and D, standard. I am going to do this the way I only know how, which is to group the three Lord of the Rings movies together in the tier they belong in. I know a lot of people out there are going to say, oh, I agree with you, or they're going to say, no, they are separate movies. Yes, I fully understand they are separate movies and came out 2001, 2, and 3, but they all literally take place seconds, if not maybe like a day in between each movie in that universe. Same thing with the Hobbit movies, but they feel totally different. All of the Lord of the Rings movies are at that same level. Now, to be different, I will pick my favorite out of the three Lord of the Rings movies, and the other two are just going to stay on that same level as equals. Let's start off with Hobbit: The Unexpected Journey, B. Unexpected Journey is B tier. This movie was a great welcome back to Middle-earth with Peter Jackson back in 2012, and we are following the story of Bilbo and the 13 dwarves and Gandalf. I'm going to try this once. Ori, Nori, Dori, Feely, Keely, Balin, Dwalin, Biffa Buffa Bumba, Ori, I already ruined it. Once upon a time I was able to do all of that, but I can't anymore. I haven't seen them in a long time. This movie was great. It's a different vibe. It's not as serious as the Lord of the Rings movies, and it's just kind of like the books. The book was a shorter book, an easier read, and more of a light story, whereas the Lord of the Rings books were way more serious, way more intricate, and a little bit of a harder read. But we're talking about the movies here, I understand. Bilbo was kind of tricked by Gandalf to join the dwarves to go reclaim the homeland of the dwarves, Erebor. Thorin Oakenshield and his band of wonderful dwarves are going to go and reclaim this, but there's one issue. Smaug the dragon is lying within that mountain. So during this entire movie, we are leading up to them going to Moria. Now recently, I just went through the Hobbit book, I went through the Silmarillion, and I went through all the Lord of the Rings books, all audiobook form, and I think the Hobbit was the most further away from the Hobbit books as you could be. They made 3 movies out of a very small book, whereas Lord of the Rings, each movie had its own book, so it was a little different. Now, I am a huge fan of Peter Jackson and his entire Kiwi crew. I have watched all of the appendices for all of Lord of the Rings and all of The Hobbit billions of times over. I know there are a lot of things within all 6 of these movies that are not in the book, and there's a lot of things that they kind of just like did differently. I think with all of these things, except maybe some of the Hobbit stuff, I think it did all of these movies justice. And I think The Unexpected Journey was a very well done movie to enter back into Middle-earth after like a 9-10 year hiatus, and I think these Hobbit movies were done really well. My favorite part of the first Hobbit movie was the conversation and the riddles in the dark between Bilbo and Gollum. Andy Serkis is one of my favorite all-time actors, and he really brings it home with that entire performance with him and Bilbo. Their motion capture really took its peak when they captured everything on his face. His eyes, his all of his expressions were perfect, and his acting was just incredible. Even Rivendell in this movie looked amazing compared to Lord of the Rings. Now, Lord of the Rings for its time looked fantastic, but in The Hobbit, they did the whole CGI route. Everything was kind of puppet, but they made things more colorful for these movies, and they're like, hey, this is not the early 2000s anymore, late 90s, we're gonna make this a little better. And they did, and it looked really good. Still not my favorite of the Lord of the Rings saga, but it was still really good. Now, Desolation of Smaug. Desolation of Smaug is A tier for me. I thought that was a really good movie, and again, the reason why it is A tier is because of the whole interaction between Bilbo and Smaug. This whole movie, they go through Mirkwood, they get captured, they're now in the Elven Kingdom of Mirkwood, and now they eventually get to Lake Town, then they get to Lake Town, then they get to Erebor. This entire story is starting to take some speed. We're finding out some stuff that's going on with Gundabad and Azog, and he's talking to the Necromancer, which is Sauron, and we're getting a lot of more of the story. Now, of course, all of this transpiring did not happen in The Hobbit. Legolas and Taddeo are not in the book. And I know there's like half of the Lord of the Rings fandom that thinks that Taddeo and Legolas should not have been in the movie. It didn't really bother me that much. I thought it was pretty unnecessary, but it wasn't a complete downer for me. I thought it added some extra entertainment for this movie, and if they were going to do 3 movies, then you needed to add something extra in there. And I'm pretty sure in the beginning there were only going to be 2 movies, and then as they went along, this whole process was very like as we go with Peter Jackson, because Peter Jackson wasn't supposed to make the Hobbit movies at all, and then eventually he decided, oh, we're going to make a 3rd one as well. But I like everything that they do in Lake Town. I like Stephen Fry as the leader of Lake Town. I thought that was great. And I like Luke Evans as Bard. So good. I even like Lee Pace as King Thranduil. Oh my gosh. Perfect performance. And he plays the father of Legolas very well. This is a regal king of the elves. Really awesome. Then we get to Erebor, and the entire conversation battle between Bilbo and Smaug is just incredible. And Bilbo's trying to not give him information, but little by little he's telling small truths and small lies, but Smaug is still deducing everything, just like Sherlock. And he's really bringing things together and piecing it like, oh, you're here because the dwarves want you here and are trying to figure out a way to get my gold. And that's the end of that. He goes and he scorches Lake Town. But first, of course, the reason why they went to Erebor was to gain the Arkenstone, so they have a claim to the mountain, and that Arkenstone is taken by Bilbo. Battle of the Five Armies is B. I enjoy Unexpected Journey better than Battle of the Five Armies, but I don't think that movie was as bad as C. Now, a little snippet. All of these movies, of course, there's only one way to watch these movies, the extended edition. You can't watch these movies any other way, especially Lord of the Rings. I know my entire life people have tried to put in Lord of the Rings movies and they'll put in the regular edition, and I'm like, what are you doing? That's not the real movie. That is a parody of the real thing. And sometimes you'll go on and you'll watch the regular version and you're sitting there thinking, where did that whole scene go? Because it was in the extended edition. Yes, I give up 12 hours of my life sometimes to watch all 3 in a binge. But back to The Hobbit. Battle of the Five Armies is only good with the extended edition. The first 2 Hobbit movies you could watch without the extended edition. Some of the scenes are kind of unnecessary. But in the Battle of the Five Armies, it's in the title. Battle of the Five Armies. And there is a large battle in the extended edition. It's the only way that movie works. First time I saw that in theaters, I was thinking the movie was so short and there was something missing. There wasn't a lot of battle, there wasn't a lot of fight, and I was expecting this huge war. And once I found the extended edition a couple years later, I was like, this is exactly the edition of this movie that I needed. Because the first time I watched that movie, it was like C, D. It was really boring. Snooze fest all over. And then once I saw the extended edition, it got to be. Thorin has finally reclaimed Erebor. Him and the dwarves are setting up shop. And Lake Town and the elves of Mirkwood are coming to reclaim what is owed to them. Obviously, Thranduil is there for himself. He just wants the jewels that belong to his ancestors. And Bard wants what he is promised, which was a cut of the gold, which was what Lake Town agreed on so that they could help him and fund him to get to Erebor. At this point, Thorin is struck with the dragon sickness, and he's not giving that gold to anybody. All he wants is that Arkenstone. He's blinded by it, and Bilbo has the Arkenstone, gives it to Thranduil and the elves and the men of Lake Town, and now Thorin is trying to kill Bilbo. But eventually, of course, the dwarves show up. So now we have 3 armies right there. Elves, dwarves, and men. And of course, the orcs show up, followed by Azog. And then the 5th army is Bolg and his orcs of Gundabad. Now we have the makings of a battle of 5 armies, and it goes so crazy. And I freaking love it. It was great, very entertaining. A lot of comedy spots in there, but then real hits to the chest with Fili and Kili dying. And then, of course, Thorin fights Azog, which is not in the books, but it was a really fun scene to watch. It was very entertaining. A very, satisfying end to see Thorin fighting Azog, and of course Thorin dies, and that's a real sad scene. And then that's it. Erebor is reclaimed, and the dwarves are now back in Erebor. Bilbo goes back to the Shire, and it jumps 70 years, and then it picks up at the Fellowship of the Ring. So that is the listing of the Hobbit films. Unexpected Journey, B. Desolation of Smaug, A. And Battle of the Five Armies, B. Now we travel back to 1998 when Peter Jackson gathered his band of merry Kiwis and decided he was going to make the 3 Lord of the Rings films. He gathered all his actors and he said, we're going to make a masterpiece. They started off by filming The Fellowship of the Ring, a beautiful, beautiful movie. Fellowship of the Ring is S tier. This movie, along with Two Towers and Return of the King, is a sheer work of perfect art. I genuinely cannot think of anything that I strongly dislike. There are a couple things after going through the books that I felt like they should have added or they could have removed, but it doesn't matter. It's still amazing. We all know the story, and if you don't, go watch the movie, but I'll do a quick, 3-second synopsis. Gandalf comes a-knocking, and Bilbo's got a ring. He gives it to Frodo. Bilbo goes to the elves. Gandalf sends Frodo and Sam out. They go to Rivendell. They find Strider along the way. Merry and Pippin join them. They get to Rivendell. He gets stabbed by the Nazgul also, by the way. Gets to Rivendell again, and he gets healed by Elrond. Then the whole Merry 9 Fellowship, they go to Moria. Well, heck, that's a nightmare. Gandalf dies. They go to Lothlorien. They leave Lothlorien, get caught in the woods, and then Boromir gets murked by an orc and gets 4 hours to the chest. Then the Fellowship splits. Frodo and Sam go off to go take the ring to Mordor. Merry and Pippin get kidnapped by orcs, and Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn go to track down and get Merry and Pippin back. Yes, that is the Fellowship right there, and it is magnificent. Every time I get started in these movies, obviously, I get so caught up in the Shire. It's so peaceful, and the thing about these movies, especially the Fellowship, is the music. It's the best music out of any movie ever to be created. And that's the thing about these movies, it's a masterpiece through and through. Through the lines in Lord of the Rings, it's more poetic than The Hobbit, and it's more thought out and plotted. The music written is just, it gets me every freaking time. I love the music in Star Wars and other things, but Howard Shore was creating a masterpiece when he started doing this. And then 3 years later, in 2003, he found out that he was going to get a butt ton of Oscars for it. So the Fellowship is beginning this masterpiece trilogy, and it is at S tier. Then we come to Two Towers, also S tier. Frodo and Sam meet up with Gollum. They're on their way. Merry and Pippin are still kidnapped. They end up in Fangorn Forest, Treebeard. Then we get into Rohan. Awesome stuff. Theoden, Éowyn, Wormtongue, Éomer. It's getting really good. Finally, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas catch up to the Rohirrim, and they end up going to Rohan. Oh, hey, look, guess what? Gandalf's back, and he's Gandalf the White. They go to Rohan. They meet Theoden, break him from his spell. Merry and Pippin, still with Treebeard. Frodo and Sam, still with Gollum. But they do get kidnapped, and they get captured by Faramir, trying to make good with his father. Then we come to the Battle of Helm's Deep. Holy crap. What a wonderful battle scene of a movie. It's so freaking good. They win the Battle of Helm's Deep. All of them, or most of them, die. Gandalf comes to the rescue with the Rohirrim. Frodo and Sam almost give the ring over to the Nazgul, but then Sam stops Frodo, and then Faramir lets them go, and they're going to go to the Morgul Vale. Merry and Pippin end up taking over Isengard with Treebeard and all of the Ents, and there you have it. Again, a absolute masterpiece. I know I'm going really fast, but if I don't, I could easily sit here for hours talking about everything. I can quote these movies from beginning to end if I really wanted to. Don't test me. Then we come to the end of this trilogy and the end of the Third Age, as we put Return of the King as well in S tier. Return of the King is S tier. Now this movie right here, I have been forced over the years when I made my top 5 movies of all time list to pull this one out as my favorite Lord of the Rings movie. I still think that stands, but all 3 of them are still in S tier, even though that's my favorite one. This movie is the longest. It is the most deep. It cuts deep with a lot of things that happen. It is the only movie out of these three that I have actually shed tears for. Things are rising in Mordor. Things are getting crazy. Minas Tirith is going to be under attack. Gandalf rides with Pippin. He meets with Denethor and is explaining that we have to send news to Rohan, to Theoden. Denethor says, no, Roll of Gondor is mine, and no others. I almost quoted a whole scene just then. Frodo and Sam, still with Gollum. Frodo is beginning to fade. He's beginning to feel the gravity of the ring pulled down on him and just draining his life. Gollum is planting some seeds inside Frodo's head, saying, the fat one is Trixie. Sorry, I can't help myself. So now Frodo has a seed of doubt in his mind. He thinks that Sam is out to steal the ring when actually it's Gollum. Gollum leads Frodo and Sam to Shelob. Sam kills Shelob. Frodo gets taken by orcs. Gollum's somewhere hiding out. And then Sam saves Frodo, and now on their merry way to Mount Doom. Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn follow with the Rohirrim on the way to Minas Tirith. They stop, they go find the dead king, enlist them to go kill some pirates, and the rest of the orcs attacking Minas Tirith. Then, the absolute beautiful Battle of Pelennor Fields. This scene, no matter how many times I watch it, which is definitely into the far hundreds, reaching 1,000, the Battle of Pelennor Fields, the battle to protect Minas Tirith, I get goosebumps every freaking time Theoden's on that horse, rallying his entire, I think, 8,000 to 9,000 army of Rohirrim. Oh my gosh, it's just strong stuff. I can't explain it. I don't know if it's nostalgia because I grew up with these movies, or if I really just do love them that much, but these movies are just so freaking good. Battle of Pelennor Fields, I believe, takes maybe like 25, almost 30 minutes long. It's a fantastic scene. Theoden dies, a lot of people die, Eowyn kicks butt, kills the Witch King, and there you have it. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli show up with the dead army and annihilate all of those orcs, and they save Minas Tirith. But then there's one thing left to do. Draw the armies out of Mordor so that Frodo and Sam can slip quietly as hobbits inside of Mount Doom and destroy the ring. Well, they do just that, and there's hundreds of thousands of orcs, and I think maybe like 300 to 400 men of the West, and they fight to the last man. Not really, I think that maybe like 100 survived. Frodo and Sam go in there. They are fighting tooth and nail to climb up into Mount Doom, and the music is just tugging at your heartstrings. And Sam finally picks up Frodo. Oh, I'm feeling goosebumps now. Sam finally picks up Frodo over his shoulder and walks him up the mountain, and the music is just roaring, and you're just like, you're about to cry. Gollum shows up and says, how about no? That ring's mine. Fights them a little bit. Finally, Sam slices Gollum's gut open, but no, he still lives. Frodo enters Mount Doom and decides he wants to keep the ring. Sam says, what the heck? We did all of this for nothing. Please, no. And then Gollum finally attacks Frodo, bites his finger off, takes the ring, and he has his precious back. Frodo fights Gollum, throws him into the lava. Sam picks him up, and now the war is over. There's a huge ceremony to welcome Aragorn to his rightful place as King of Gondor, and there you have it. The hobbits go back to the Shire. Frodo eventually tells Sam that he is going to the Undying Lands with Gandalf and some elves, and it is a very emotional scene. The hobbits weren't expecting it, and they're saying goodbye, they're crying, and it's really emotional, and it's a really deep scene. But then Frodo looks back and he smiles, and you can tell, like, Sam knows that he's going to see him again one day, but he goes back to his family, and that's all she wrote. That is the end of Lord of the Rings in that timeline. And because these movies are so amazing, it has set the bar extremely high for anything else that anybody else will ever make for Lord of the Rings. Right now we have the Rings of Power Season 1 and the first 3 episodes of Season 2, and they're just not good. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know why they're trying to take too many freedoms with the story. Peter Jackson is the only one that can take freedom with the movie and make it work. But when you have big companies like Disney taking over Star Wars, or HBO Max taking over Harry Potter and trying to make a series out of it, or Amazon taking over the rights to Lord of the Rings and trying to make a story, it just doesn't work. The Rings of Power is a mid-tier kind of show, but there's a lot in there that just does not fly. It doesn't work. It doesn't vibe well, and For the most part, it kind of feels like Lord of the Rings, and it takes place thousands of years before The Hobbit, so it's okay. You kind of like mess around, but if you mess around too much, you're ruining the integrity of what we already know. And I know there's a lot of open space in the Silmarillion where you can kind of like make stuff up and go your own way with it, but you can't just make things up and make Galadriel this like warrior chick where she's supposed to be a very elegant elf, very regal, and now she's this fly by the seat of your pants kind of elf cop kind of deal, trying to go after Sauron, a very vengeful, and it's just it doesn't vibe well. War of the Rohirrim's coming out, this animated Lord of the Rings show. I think it could be good. I'm not sure, but I know they're gonna make a Hunt for Gollum movie. Andy Serkis is coming back. That could be fun. And I really hope that Peter Jackson comes back for one final film, and I hope he makes the Silmarillion. I think that would be absolutely amazing. Bring back some of the old crew and do something really great. I think that would be a great way to end his run with Lord of the Rings. And it's not a trilogy. There's no reason to make a trilogy out of that. Or Peter Jackson can make a series, because there are stories within the Silmarillion, and there are other books in Middle-earth where they can do like stories. And I will only ever enjoy it if it's Peter Jackson, because he knows how to do it well. I just can't express enough how much I love these movies, and I'm thinking you're starting to get the message. Such great cinema. It is, without a doubt, my favorite series and stories of movies of all time. Right under that, Star Wars, but these movies are incredible, especially Lord of the Rings. They are just so freaking amazing. These movies right here are the reason why I love film so much, and the appendices really, really made it easy to love film. Watching the appendices really made me fall in love with cinema and how making a movie happens, and seeing it just looked like so much fun when the people of Lord of the Rings made these movies, and they were making incredible pieces of art. That is it, the most important tier list I will ever make. All 3 Lord of the Rings movies at S tier. They belong there. If there was an S+++++ tier, that's where they will also belong as well. They are beautiful movies, and this will not be the last time you hear me do a tier list based off of Lord of the Rings. I don't know what tier list I'll be making next. Please leave in the comments what you think I should do. I might mess around with some Marvel characters. I might stay in Lord of the Rings for a little while and maybe do like a character tier list. I might also do like a favorite scenes of Lord of the Rings, or maybe favorite battles of Lord of the Rings. But I am excited to keep doing more tier lists in general. And it's the only way I know how to do a little mini podcast, a fun way, and I get to do a tier list while I'm doing it. Thanks for watching this video. If you like it, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.